Sorry, Elvis was in the
Yeah,
building.
we were looking at lyrics for Love Me Tender. I heard it one way, he heard it the other. We're not going to say who was right, because that would be gloating.
And I certainly don't want to gloat.
Especially in your inerrancy. I did it again! That's twice this week.
My inerrancy? Wow.
You were wrong.
I was wrong.
You was.
But
you were. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
How's it going?
Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, X.
Oh, man.
Soon to be, hopefully, Instagram and Twitch. She told me this morning we should do Twitch, too. And we should.
Yeah,
it's
apparently
available,
we can.
so why not?
So why not?
There are just chatting channels and stuff on Twitch, and who knows?
And, it's like we've been talking about a lot recently. It's just our goal is
Get the
to
word
get him out
there.
there.
So I'll try and turn that on tomorrow, because we've got an account. We've got a page all set up on Twitch. I just never did much with it beyond playing Civilization.
See, I've never
Not a surprise.
followed streaming stuff like that, like the gaming streaming. But all I think about when I hear Twitch is the dancer.
Yeah.
He was such an amazing, amazing dancer. I was actually watching, surprise, an episode of Bones while doing my leg treatment, and Twitch was on one of those episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was after his So You Think You Can Dance breakout.
Sure.
But yeah, he was on there.
Everybody's going, what are they talking about?
I used to love So You Think You Can Dance. I was just enamored with it. This was back when they were season 4. So we were watching it like season 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we just got tired of it. But the Twitch and Carrington dances and Joshua and just...
Perfect. What was her name?
Yeah, I think it was Perfect. I think that's what her name was. But some of those dances that they did then... with like when Joshua's the soldier and then he takes off his jacket and it twirls and and she's suddenly wearing the jacket, or they did that weird like toe lift, remember he did like up on his but the Viennese waltz with Twitch and Carrington, and Twitch was a breaker, right. A popper, and to turn around and do that Viennese waltz was just
I swear we've given people apoplexy this morning. What are they even talking about?
No, but his suicide was
shocking.
Yeah. Good morning.
It is Thursday, July the 10th.
Guess what happens tomorrow?
It becomes July the 11th.
Good job.
That actually happens tonight.
Yes.
Tomorrow, our kids come home from camp.
They do. Yeah. Jeremiah and Philip come home from camp tomorrow. They've been out at East Texas Baptist University in Marshall, Texas, and look to be having a great time.
Yeah, from the pictures and stuff that I'm seeing. So it's good. And Jeremiah found a way to secret messages to us.
Yeah, through Instagram. I haven't looked to see if he's sent any more messages, but yeah. We're the evil parents. They don't have phones, so they can't.
They don't need phones.
I know, but you'd think we're evil for saying that. So that's one of the reasons he's looking forward to getting a job once he graduates this fall, so he can get a phone.
Anyway.
So they'll come home. They'll have July, August, September, 3 more months for school.
Hopefully.
Yeah. They're on the right track. It's crazy. They're 14 and 15. They're graduating from high school in October. Hopefully. If our schedule goes
I'm
right.
only saying that because there was a little bit of a hiccup with one of the classes, so they're having to power through pre-cal if they want to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's
so
a
far
lot.
so good.
So far so good. They're doing good.
But yeah, they'll get to the point they might have like 8 assignments a day. But
8 or 6 assignments, 1 quiz and 1 test all in one day.
But they're still done with school in a couple of hours.
I know.
I mean, homeschooling has been the most amazing thing that we've done.
Yeah.
And you can't help but look at our kids who have gone through the system completely, and they've done amazingly well. And it's really an amazing moment. We were at a dinner last week for at the Institute for Creation Research at ICR, where Seth is employed, and it was really, really cool because we were talking at the table and somehow school came up, and the
chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board happened to be at our table, and he said, "So you all homeschool?" And we said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Good for you." And that was just a really cool feeling. I imagine he knows the twins, that he's met the twins.
Sure.
But it's just nice to get that reassurance. It's nice talking to other people saying, "Yeah, we're going to be homeschooling our kids," and it's just, I get so excited about that. It was a terrifying moment to take that responsibility on. But one of the things that I am most proud of for you and me and for our children to endure, we were really lucky because during the time of COVID, when suddenly people were forced to be homeschooling, we'd already been doing it. You know, we had, it's kind of like parenting. You don't just typically start out as a parent of a grown child unless you're some of the amazing, amazing people out there who foster and adopt. Typically, you've got the 9 months of pregnancy to get ready, and you've got infancy to prepare and how to parent. And we were the same way with homeschooling. We started in preschool, preschool through senior year. We went every step of the way, and it was a gradual way to go into it. COVID comes, and people were thrown into the masses going, boom, they're yours now. And we didn't have to have that angst of what am I doing? I had that in moments. A lot. But yeah, we started that in 2001 for the twins. So it's been a long time.
Indeed.
A long time.
Indeed.
So anyway, hey, I'm Tammy.
I'm Seth.
And we're the 4031 family.
We are indeed.
And we're really, really glad you're here.
If you're still here after that 10-minute rant about dance and homeschooling. No, I don't mean that as a criticism. I just mean...
we talk about our life.
I know.
And this is our life.
I know.
That was our life too.
I know. So good. I'm just saying.
If you haven't yet, we would love it if you would like or follow the page that you're on the platform that you're watching.
YouTube, X, Rumble.
And
Facebook.
then also go to the other ones. They should be in the description to be able to do a link to our page on all those other platforms. And it would just really help us to grow and get God out there.
Yeah, it would really help us if you would like the channels. We're seeing growth, which is good. We're seeing numbers tick up. But, the more people who like your page or like your channel or like your posts, the more likely the various platforms are to show it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want as many people to see it as we can. So.
Because the more see it, the more who see it, the more who can share and glorify God. And you might even have found us today because who knows why. And whatever we talk about, you might have questions about, and we probably do too. But it's okay not to have all the answers.
Exactly right.
And it's okay if you're here and don't really know about God. It's one of the reasons we're here is to share God with as many people as we can and
answer whatever questions people might have. Feel free to post them in the comments. Doesn't have to be while we're live. We obviously see our posts, so we can always go back and
silly thing, you might have questions, and that might even be even if you already are a Christian, because guess what? Nobody knows all the answers all the time.
Except God.
Well, yeah. But my point being, it's like I remember that when we were talking to each of the children when they came to their salvation, was just because you became a Christian did not mean you wouldn't sin, and did not mean you wouldn't mess up, and did not mean that you would suddenly have all the answers. Right. It doesn't. It's a constant growth in our Christianity, whether you're a brand new Christian, regardless of your age, or you've been a Christian for a long time. There's always a new facet of this life with God that we get to learn and dive deeper into. You are not perfect just because you're a Christian. You will still stumble, but we have the gift of a graceful and merciful God. And that's it for today. No, just kidding.
Morning Moments with Tammy.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's picked up the book, so we're on to the next thing.
This is the book.
Dun, da, da.
Do you want one just for yourself? And you can have this in your notebook? I mean, this is a notebook.
Actually, you can't. So she's mispromising. If you were to sign up today for Days of
You
Grace,
won't get this
you
one.
won't get that one, probably. Because it's late in the quarter.
Well, that's true. Because, we're halfway. Oh, my gosh, we're halfway through this quarter.
Yeah. So, I don't know if they send them out during...
We'll probably get the next one later this month.
Yeah. So,
because I know we had it the full month before.
Yeah, so September, October, November will be the next one.
So soon I'll be able to show the new one to you.
It won't have a starfish.
No, it won't. I bet it will be something fall-y.
Probably.
Because it'll be the September, October, November one.
Yeah. Anyway, icr.org/DOP, you can sign up and have the book delivered to you every quarter. You can have it in your email box every morning.
Every day.
That way you can read it before we do, because we still haven't read today's
You can read it, and you can even just press play if you go to the website, and it will be read to you by one of the employees at ICR, Mr. Davis Napier.
Oh, you just doubted him.
I did.
I hope he's okay with that.
Me too.
Why wouldn't he be?
Sorry, Dave.
Dr. Dino. Dino Dave, not Dr. Dino.
Dino Dave.
Sorry.
And Miss Emmy.
Anyway, so today's devotion is based on Proverbs 11:29.
What's it say?
It says that he that troubles his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be servant to the wise of heart.
So I have to admit, there are sometimes Proverbs just go over my head. It's like the Chinese Proverbs. They just kind of...
the Chinese Proverbs at all.
Well, no, I mean only in the sense of they just kind of are a statement that make you think, which is a good thing. But I'm like, huh? I had to read that over. Like, I don't know what that means.
He that troubles his own house.
Yeah.
So if you're... Well, this is totally extemporaneous here, right? So... If you
we have not read ahead. We are not prepared.
If you're making trouble at home, you'll inherit the wind. What do people normally inherit?
Grief.
No, people normally inherit. Are they here?
No, they're asking. We're having issues with our car. So excuse me.
Yeah.
Has your service or provider arrived?
No. Anyway. No, you normally inherit wealth.
Yes.
Right? But if you're going to make trouble in your own house, you'll inherit the wind,
yeah,
which
don't
is...
do that. Not wealth.
Nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. In other words, if you act foolishly, trouble your own house, you get nothing from life, and you'll end up serving those who are wiser.
Okay. Thank you.
Now let's see
who wrote this.
Dr. Henry Morris.
Dr. Morris.
What he says about this. My guess is that this is going to be a Scopes trial thing.
Okay.
This verse was selected to provide the title for one of the most widely distributed movies ever produced in Hollywood.
I knew there was that title, but I didn't know. And there you go. It is Scopes.
Yeah.
I'm reading ahead. Sorry. But I didn't know it would have been based
Psalm
on
46:10. Stop it.
That was my day yesterday.
Right? Inherit the Wind was a black and white movie, and therefore, according to our children, not worth watching.
I never saw it.
You never watched Inherit the Wind?
No.
Okay. Did you read it in high school?
No.
Really?
Yeah. We even went to the same high school. Did you read it in high school?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I know I read it.
Go ahead.
It was a black and white movie produced in 1960, starring Spencer Tracy as the famous atheist lawyer Clarence Darrow. The subject of the picture, you can tell Dr. Morris was the subject of the picture, was the Scopes evolution trial held in Tennessee in 1925, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
This summer.
This month.
The picture glorified Darrow and evolutionism, portraying creationists and Bible-believing Christians as fanatical buffoons.
Fanatical Christians? I've never heard that phrase before.
Fanatical buffoons. Although the movie grossly distorted history, it has continued all these years to be shown over and over. The Scopes trial itself, in the absence of any real scientific evidence for evolution, is repeatedly rehashed in print by evolutionists in their zeal to destroy creationism. This is typical of the, quote, profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. That's from 1 Timothy chapter 6, to which evolutionists resort in lieu of evidence. In other words, you don't have any evidence, say, The science proved it. Or whatever. Profane and vain babblings. Oppositions of science, falsely so called. As far as the scripture verse itself is concerned, it should serve rather as a sober warning to those evolutionary humanists who are still troubling our nation's homes and schools and churches with this false and deadly doctrine of evolution. They are the ones who will inherit the wind. From Psalm 1, the ungodly are like the chaff which the wind drives away. They are the ones who, in Romans 1, Paul says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No.
We've got like 3 lines.
Well, that's okay. We can come back to 3 lines. What?
Worshiping the creature more than the Creator,
Well,
and that's blatantly evolution is thinking.
Giving the environment the credit for what God did.
Mother Nature.
Yeah.
As opposed to Father God. I'm going with God on that one, on all of them, everything. But I mean, that's a biblical thing, and it's just.
What's a biblical thing?
The
worshipped and served the creature more
professing
than the
themselves to be wise became fools. They changed the truth of God in different verses, but they changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator. And this was a quote from the Bible. So it's been a minute since that was written, and yet it is so blatant in society still today.
Still true today, absolutely. Yeah. Because you don't want there to be a God, because if there's a God, then you might be responsible to him.
Right.
He might call you to account for being a bad steward of what he gave you. And
including your own self.
Correct. And so it's easier to find... I mean, Darwin himself said he was trying to explain the world without God. That was his purpose, was to come up with an explanation that didn't require God. And he didn't. All evolution does is rename God. Mm-hmm. You can look at most evolutionary literature that talks about natural selection or survival of the fittest and replace that phrase with God. And it still works. Because all he did was rename God in the process. Mm-hmm. He didn't... So Darwin's book on the origin of species, right? The one thing he doesn't talk about in that book is the origin of species. Right? He talks about evolution, but he never talks about the origin.
That's funny.
Because there is no origin. I saw a reel yesterday from an abiogenesis professor who was trying to teach his students the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is that they are not close to creating life. He says most people think science has created life. We're not even close. And that's because life only comes from God. They will never create life because you can't. You can take all the amino acids you want and put them all together and have them all the right structure and the right whatever and get them all perfectly aligned and set up. But if there's no spark, we even use that term, a spark of life, right? If there's no, it just can't. It just can't. Mm-hmm. No matter how much you want it to. No matter how much you want it to. We can talk about evolution in the sense of changes over time, and sure, organisms change over time, they adapt to their environments, that's all true. But when you talk about evolution, we talk about natural selection. Let's use the term. When you talk about natural selection, what you're talking about is something making a choice. That's in order to be selecting, there has to be a selector.
Okay.
Right? But nature is agnostic. Meaning it's apathetic to the thing. It doesn't have a will. It doesn't have agency to do anything. It is a better explanation of what we see in nature to say that creatures possess within themselves the ability to respond to changes in their environment. So that when food is scarce, for example, finches on the Galapagos Islands will adapt to a scarcity of food by getting longer beaks, so that they can dig deeper with them. So a change in beaks is not evolution; it's an adaptation. And then when you have,
well, is that similar to the wildlife after Mount St. Helens with the twinning?
That's the next place I was going to go. Yeah, when the environment becomes so desolate, like after the eruption of Mount St. Helens, which wiped away so much of the ecology and forestry, all that stuff. And scientists were baffled by the fact that suddenly elk, deer, beavers, all of these different creatures in and around that area who survived, the incidence of having multiple offsprings went through the roof.
Yeah. Because
the creatures have within themselves detectors or sensors to realize,
I got to fix an issue.
We got to fix an issue. And so the creatures adapt to the environment and to the changing conditions in such a way to fulfill the dominion mandate they were giving in Genesis, which is to go and replenish the earth. To fill. Replenish is an old English word. It doesn't mean to refill. It means to fill. We still use the word replete. If something is replete with something, it's full of something. So replenishment, to fill the earth. So creatures are tasked, just like we were tasked, with going and filling the earth. Well, when the section of the earth after Mount St. Helens was empty, that mechanism to respond to the emptiness, and I don't know how they sensed it. I'm not saying I know all of the things. And I'm not saying it's a conscious decision. Mm-hmm. And that's the point. When I say it's within the creature, that's the rub, because how did it get there, right? And that's what natural selection does, is it takes away the credit due to the creator for building into his creations the ability to adapt to changing environments. It takes that credit away and gives it to some random process, which, if you build a better mousetrap, you'll live longer, and then you'll have better mousetrap builders. That's the survival of the fittest kind of a thing. And it robs God of his glory for having done what he did, not only in creating everything, but in building into his creation the ability for creatures to adapt. There are all kinds of examples of I think it's a lizard on an island in the Hebrides or something like that, there's two populations, and there's two islands, and they're separate. There's no crossover, and one population has longer. You can see the same creatures in multiple environments. It's like cavefish. Mm-hmm. You have seeing Mexican tetrafish who go into cave environments, and within a couple generations, not millions of years, within a couple generations, because they don't need their eyes, the creature has within it the switch that says, hey, don't make an eye. Let's use that energy that we would use to do an eye to make these additional sensors, that would be more useful in that environment than eyes, because they can't see. And then the flip side is true. When you take those Mexican cavefish and you take them out of the caves and into light, within several generations, you start to get the eyes turned back on.
That's
because
amazing.
Because those mechanisms that are there to sense in the dark are not useful in the light.
Right.
Well, they're useful, but they're not needed like they're needed in the dark. Mm-hmm. And there's something inherent in the creature that senses that. And that just makes sense. That's how engineers of any stripe work. Mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, you build sensors and you respond to stimuli, right? When you're building an elevator, you put a sensor in to check if anybody's standing in the door before the door closes. When nobody's there, you close the door. It's all sensor and response, sensor and response, sensor and response. And that's exactly how life works, right? Which doesn't point to a random process of eliminating things that are inefficient. It points to design, and not only design for now. It's not like God just created things and said, there you go. He created them with the ability to adapt to the changing environments, which is amazing. So when you say, well, natural selection, you are actually, on some level, you're committing idolatry. You're giving the credit to the creature rather than the creator. The creature being in this instance, not the creature, but the environment, because the environment is a creation.
Right.
You know, it's not a living creature, but it's a creature in the sense it is a created thing. When you give credit to the environment for what God did, you have committed idolatry.
When you talk about the ability for people or environment to adapt, I would imagine that becomes a pivot point for people to say, but God didn't do that, I did it, because I'm the one who adapted. But it's about the fact that God gave our bodies or the cave fish or, you know, whatever thing we're talking about. God programmed.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
It's not that we chose to pivot that mechanism that says, I don't need an eye anymore, so I'm not going to make it.
Right. The creature, it's built into the creature. Hey, when you encounter this set of stimuli,
but that takes it away from the source of the adaptation being the thing.
The environment that's acting on the creature and influencing. That's not what it is at all. It's the creature responding. The best and probably most common example of this, it's kind of like sunrises. Nobody thinks of the sunrise as displaying the glory of God because it's so commonplace, right? But think about like snowshoe hares, right? During the summer, winter, or the summer and fall and spring, they're brown. But because the undergrowth is brown, where they are is brown. But when the snow falls, they turn white, right? I mean, our hair doesn't change.
Amazing.
Our hair doesn't change color. Well, you know.
Mine did.
Yeah. But you know what I mean.
I wasn't born with white hair.
The creature adapts to the change, and the hair changes color.
Yeah, for camouflaging.
To protect the creature.
That's amazing.
You know, so it's like... So one day a rabbit was born that had white fur, and it was killed in August. And one day a rabbit was born that had brown fur, and it was killed in December. And then one day, finally, there was a rabbit born that had brown fur in August and white fur in December, and he survived. And so, like, how does that the point is, how does that kind of a thing doesn't happen? There is a sensor in the creature that detects when winter's coming, whether it's temperature or whatever it is, and there's a change in the creature to adapt to the environment. And that happens on the evolutionary time scale like that, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that's exactly what's happening in other creatures as well.
The lab is open, right? The windows, the tanks.
Yeah, I think so.
That's public.
Yeah, I think so.
So, the thing we were talking about with cave fish, they can go...
You can go see that, yeah. At ICR's Discovery Center in Dallas, Texas, there's our biology lab there that's open to... It's not open to the public, but there's a glass window that you can look in and see the experiments that are being done on these cave fish.
The Mexican tetrafish that he was talking about.
To sort of prove just what we're talking about. And
they're doing experiments on...
trying to find exactly what the triggers are, whether it's salinity or pH or light or what it is that triggers the...
But that's how we're finding out that within a couple generations of the fish, we're watching them.
It's not quite to the point of watching the eyes disappear or watching the eyes come back, but it is. We have demonstrated changes in pigmentation and things like that are very rapidly happening. They're not.
Yeah.
You go from the translucent cave fish to fish you would normally think of and see.
It's really pretty amazing. So if you are local to the Dallas area and want a little bit more information and see the space where they're doing these experiments, you can go to the Discovery Center at the Institute for Creation Research in Dallas. And as you're going through the museum, about 3/4 of the way through the museum, they knocked out one of the walls or part of the wall so that you can actually see the fish tanks that lead into that part of the lab where they've got the cave fish, and it's really pretty amazing. And so I imagine there's also kiosks on the museum side talking about that lab work. It's really, really amazing stuff that we're able to do at the Institute for Creation Research just to prove.
ICR has not sponsored this program.
No, they haven't. It's just we've been part of them since 2008.
But this is just us talking, obviously. It's not.
it's just an amazing thing to be able to witness. And it's not just something that you read about in some book. I mean, where you yourself can go through the museum and see the very lab windows, the tanks where this is happening today. And it's pretty cool, the things that we can observe to help prove God's hand in so much of this stuff that people want to claim to themselves. Again, we're leading up to the scope stuff of people want to take the credit for
want
things.
To give the credit to anybody but
God.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
In Psalm 53, it is the fool who says that there is no God in our text. Evolutionists, humanists, atheists, and other anti-biblicists will inherit nothing but wind, but the wise shall inherit glory. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get the thing off. I don't like having my chin on the box. And we're done with it anyway. I can't sit up much taller. Doesn't work.
She's a shorty.
I'm not. Anyway.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Please like, share, and if you can, go to the 4031 Family Facebook page and follow it. We would like to get that to the point where we can stream directly to that page rather than having to post YouTube links on that page, which is what we're having to do now. Yep. So if you found us on another platform, Rumble or YouTube or X, if you can just take a minute and click through the link to the 4031 Family Facebook page and follow it there. We don't post a lot of stuff. We're not going to spam too much. We'll probably start doing more.
Not spamming,
but yeah.
Posting stuff.
We would really appreciate that a lot.
Hopefully you'll start to see some more posts about the things that we do have available for sale on our website, the4031family.com.
Yep.
And the whole purpose of that is truly still to be getting God out there. But it's through engaging, fun workbooks, word search books, handwriting practice, journaling Bibles, and also just through some scripturally based gifts and stuff like that.
So check it out. Thanks for checking us out.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching today.
Thank you.
I guess that's it.
I guess so.
So
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday for the 4031 family today. I am Seth.
And I am Tammy.
Don't forget, he's God.
We're not.
Have a good day.
We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:30.